Have you ever heard of a man who built an empire on illegal booze, ruled a city with an iron fist, and became a legend in his own time? This is the story of Al Capone, the most notorious gangster in American history, and his spectacular rise and fall. Our story begins in the early 1920s. A young, ambitious, tough guy from Brooklyn named Alphonse Capone arrives in Chicago. The city is a powder keg, and the fuse has just been lit by Prohibition. Capone starts as a bouncer and enforcer for his mentor, Johnny Torrio, the head of the Chicago outfit. But Capone wasn't destined to stay in the shadows. He was smart, ruthless, and saw the golden opportunity that Prohibition presented. While the rest of the country went dry, Capone was getting ready to make it rain. With Torrio's guidance, Capone quickly climbed the ranks. He took control of the city's underworld, building a massive criminal enterprise. We're talking bootlegging operations that smuggled whiskey from Canada, a network of secret bars called speakeasies, where the champagne flowed freely, and illegal gambling dens that raked in millions. Capone was living the high life, draped in expensive suits, driving bulletproof Cadillacs, and seen at all the hottest nightclubs. He wasn't just a criminal, he was a celebrity. He loved the attention, often giving interviews and portraying himself as a modern-day Robin Hood, just providing a service the public wanted. But beneath the glamour and champagne was a river of blood. Chicago became a war. Rival gangs fought for control of the lucrative bootlegging territories, and Capone was the most brutal player of all. His weapon of choice, the Thompson submachine gun, nicknamed the Chicago typewriter. The streets echoed with gunfire as Capone systematically eliminated his rivals. He had politicians, judges, and half the police force on his payroll, making him seem untouchable. He was the law in Chicago. The peak of his reign of terror came on February 14th, 1929, a day that would go down in infamy as the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. 7 members of his rival's gang, the North Side Gang, were lined up against a garage wall and brutally executed by men disguised as police officers. While Capone was conveniently in Florida, everyone knew who was behind it. The massacre shocked the entire nation. It was no longer just about booze and gambling. It was a brazen act of war. The press dubbed him Public Enemy Number 1, and the federal government decided enough was enough. The party was over. The feds unleashed a special team of incorruptible agents, led by a man named Eliot Ness, becoming known as the Untouchables. Because they couldn't be bribed, they relentlessly raided Capone's breweries and warehouses, disrupting his operations and costing him millions. But while Ness was chasing the booze, another team from the Treasury Department was following the money. Capone had made a fatal mistake. He was the richest man in the city, but he had never filed a single tax return. His arrogance was his downfall. He thought he was too big to fail. In 1931, the world watched as Al Capone, the man who had gotten away with countless murders and acts of violence, was finally brought to justice. The charge, not murder, not racketeering, but simple tax evasion. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury found him guilty, and he was sentenced to 11 years in federal prison, the longest sentence ever given for tax evasion at the time. The king had been dethroned. Capone's journey ended in the notorious Alcatraz prison, a cold, harsh rock in the middle of San Francisco Bay. Here, he was just another inmate, stripped of his power, his fancy suits, and his army of gangsters. His health rapidly declined as an old syphilis infection ravaged his brain. By the time he was released, he was a shadow of his former self, his mind gone. He spent his final years in his Florida mansion, a broken and forgotten man, before passing away in 1947. From the undisputed ruler of Chicago to a powerless invalid, Al Capone's life is a cautionary tale. He chased a dark version of the American dream, built on violence and corruption, and in the end, it consumed him entirely. His empire crumbled, his legend faded into history, and the man who once thought he was untouchable died alone. Thanks so much for watching this deep dive into history. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next video. See you next time.